Welcome to Around the ASUN. Around the ASUN is the newest podcast for the newest conference in FCS football. Now let's send it to your hosts, Will Seiler and Brandon Owens.
Welcome back, FCS fans nation, to another episode of Around the ASUN, and we are ready to recap week 4 of the FCS football season here in the ASUN conference, and then preview week 5. So bear with us. It is late on Sunday night, and both of our teams lost. So I don't know that this will be the most enthusiastic episode you've ever heard, but we will try to keep the positivity high. So I really just jump right in. I'd ask you how you're doing, but I feel like I know.
Yeah, I'm still pissed.
I mean, I'm sure we're both feeling it the day after tough losses, but we'll just jump right in, read you some results from week 1, and then we'll dive into them. So obviously, UCA dropped a fairly close one on the Stripes to the number 1 team in the country, defending national champions, Sam Houston State, 45-35. Jacksonville State dropped a close one, 34-31 to UT Martin. Eastern Kentucky got a big win over Austin Peay, 35-27, and North Alabama dropped one to Nichols in Thibodaux, 31-14. So, I've got my thoughts on the UCA game, but I don't know that loss was as surprising as maybe the Jacksonville State loss was. So let's get a couple out of the way, and then we'll talk about those two. UNA's lost to Nichols. I don't know that anybody was super caught off guard by that. That makes the Lions 0-4 start the year. Nichols is a decent team. They've been right there in the conversation in the Southland here in the past few years, so wasn't super surprised. I was hoping maybe they'd go pull one out. I think they'll get back on track this week, but didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot of that one. But kind of disappointed. Wish they'd have pulled it out, but they did not. Did you get to see any of it?
I did not. I had it on because ESPN, you can do like the 4 games at once. I had it on, but I was mainly focused on the Sam Houston Central Arkansas game and the Weber State UC Davis game.
It appeared as though North Alabama just didn't have the ability to stop the Nichols offense. They had almost 300 yards on the ground, and so when you're not having to use the passing game, it can be difficult to stop a team like that. And Lindsey Scott Jr. is a heck of a quarterback for Nichols. Watching him play last spring was a thing of beauty. They were a team I thought was going to be a top 10 title contender, but kind of wheels fell off late. But so disappointing for North Alabama, but
yeah, the good thing for UNA, I think the entire game was like going into halftime, they led like 14-3. So like they had a really good first half. I don't know what exactly happened going into the second half, but
yeah, I mean, sometimes the better team comes out, makes some adjustments after halftime, and it's just how it rolls. Tim Rebowe, he was always good at making adjustments there for Nichols, so know that all too well. That's a tough team, tough place to play. So hopefully North Alabama can get back on track this week against Campbell. So also Austin Peay and Eastern Kentucky. This was one heck of a game. I did not necessarily expect Eastern Kentucky to win it, but they did. It was back and forth, close game. It was close all the way, but then Eastern Kentucky made some plays when they had to, and including a pick 6, which, I don't know what the percentage is, but anytime you have a defensive score, the chances of winning the ball game go up like tenfold or something like that. It's insane. So that was big time for the Colonels to get their first de facto ASUN win in the first true ASUN conference game, I guess. Well, Jacksonville State, North Alabama, but no, that was fun to watch. It's big time for them. They've got something brewing there in Richmond. Well, you were reading me the attendance numbers before the show. That's big time for them. They're on the come up there in Eastern Kentucky. So
Yeah, their attendance numbers were almost like double, almost even triple what they usually were in the OVC. Like they have at least a 20,000 seat stadium, and for OVC games they were maybe putting 5,000, 6,000 in the stands.
no, I believe it.
And yeah, and then going into this season there was like 14,000, 13,000. I was like, dang. I guess moving to a hyped up conference is will put butts in the seat, and with it being a new conference, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't it? JSU's attendance during UNA was like 20,000, which it's a rivalry game, so like we expected at least 20,000, but I mean, even yesterday with the game against UT Martin, it still looked like it was on average at least like 15,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah, Eastern Kentucky, given the success they've had in the past and the size of the athletic department, they're poised to be one of those, big attendance boosters for the FCS. And yeah, the stadium's big. We played there last spring, which COVID had, limited attendance. But I don't, people there were like, this is about what it is normally. But so it's good to see that the Colonels have something brewing. They won't be a tough out for anybody in the ASUN. Or they won't be an easy game on the schedule for anybody in the ASUN this year. So that's, I was kind of hoping that maybe they'd be the team that you could count on every now and then getting a win, but it does not look that way. It looks like what happened last fall was not a fluke, and they are a good football team.
Yeah, I was looking at the stats, and Austin Peay's going to be the same way. Like their total yards of offense were almost double what Eastern Kentucky's were.
Yeah, it looked like both teams had some trouble running the ball. They sat right at 100 yards, which, I mean, it's pretty good, but it appeared that Austin Peay just threw it all around the yard. So yeah, that was a good one. That was an exciting one to watch. Definitely, when I saw that score, I was a little surprised. I figured even in a close game, I figured Austin Peay would pull it out. But props to the Colonels. That's awesome. We are excited for you guys. So moving on, we'll go ahead and talk about what was our ASUN game of the week, or AQ7 game of the week last week. And that was the defending national champion, Sam Houston, coming to Conway to take on UCA. And, man, this was a roller coaster of a game. Sam Houston came out, and I hate to say it, but you were exactly right. You said if they jumped out to a 2-3 score lead, that it would be tough to come back. And I don't even want to say that we started slow. I want to say it was just like our third down defense wasn't great. I think their first touchdown was like a 50-yard bomb on like 3rd and 12 or something. I mean, I want to say they converted like 3 third downs on the very first drive. They jumped out on us 14-0. We brought it back to 14-7, and they ended up making it 31-7 at one point. And it was like, dude, they're pouring it on. And then we scored right before halftime. Came out of halftime, outscored them, shut them out in the third quarter, had it down to 31-28 going into the fourth quarter, and held them to a field goal. So they went up by 6, and it really looked like, hey, UCA is poised to make a comeback. And offense sputtered a little bit, turned the ball over a couple times early in the fourth quarter, and Sam Houston pulled away. Ended up being a 10-point game, 45-35. So all things considered, I think we were a 10-point underdog, lost by 10. So the Vegas odds makers got it exactly right. So props to those guys. But although they had the total at like 62, and 80 points were scored. But yeah, so all things considered, not a horrible, not a bad loss for UCA, but a loss nonetheless. And the Bears dropped to 1-3. So disappointing, but there's definitely some promise coming from that. We were able to move the ball. We didn't run the ball very well, which was kind of a letdown because the past 2 weeks we'd run the ball pretty well. So it was a little bit of a letdown, but we know how Sam Houston's defensive line was from the spring, and I don't think they really lost anything. So, our passing game did what we've done the past couple weeks, but just couldn't get the ball going on the ground and turn the ball over a couple key points in the game, and probably kept us from really completing what would have been I don't like the word magical, but a heck of a comeback is what it would have been. So, whatever. 10-point loss to the defending national champions. Can't live on it too long, especially now that you probably got to win 7 in a row to make the playoffs, given that one of the games on the schedule is a NAIA game for homecoming. So we are, backs in the corner, but I want to say it was 2011 or 2012. We started out 1-3 with a loss to Sam Houston and rattled off like 8 in a row, made the playoffs and won a game in the playoffs, beat Tennessee Tech, and then went to Montana and got curb stomped. But either way, made the playoffs, ended up doing well that year. So there is still hope. I'm not too disappointed, but just sucks that we got all the way back and then just couldn't quite take it to the finish line. So you were watching it a little bit because you texted me. So
yeah, I was at that time I wasn't like watching it, but I was texting you while I was at the game, and I remember I said, "What is happening?" Like, that's not good.
Which I was trying to reply quickly, and which really our defense did well. First and second down defense did really well, and I thought our defense line played well. Defensive backs played well on first and second down. I don't know what it was about third down. The receivers from Sam Houston are for real. We knew that from the spring, but they showed it on the stripes. They had an extra step a few times that our corners were playing behind the receivers, and they got a couple deep balls on us, which I felt like some teams may have had on us earlier in the year, the first 3 games, that they just, ball was a couple inches too far in front of them, and so they didn't get to it, or a little bit short, and we ended up breaking the pass up. But that's a sign of a good team. When they get a step on you, they complete the pass, and they end up winning. So, I think maybe they were for real. But if they're the best team in FCS, then UCA is not a bad football team. And some people will say, well, you're 1-3, so you're not very good. But I do think that UCA has the weapons and has the capability to rattle 7 off and maybe win a playoff game or 2. So I do not think hope is lost in Conway, Arkansas, even though you're 1-3. I want to say probably 2011 was probably the last time UCA was 1-3, but the schedule was front loaded for sure, playing Missouri State, Sam Houston, and Arkansas State 3 out of the first 4 weeks. So kind of that schedule.
Oh, the same schedule you had this year.
Huh? No. I'm saying this year, like that, the schedule was front loaded this year.
Oh, I thought you were saying 2011 y'all had the same schedule.
No, I want to say it was like Louisiana Tech and Sam Houston, and I want to say they played 2 FBS games that year, like Tulsa maybe. But but this year you consider, Sam Houston, Missouri State, Arkansas State. Those were 3 games that we were. I don't think we were favored in the Missouri State game either. So we've lost the games we were supposed to lose, won the game we were supposed to win. So hopefully we'll get it together for a rattle off 7 straight and make the playoffs. So, but no, I think we've got the capability, and we can do it. So we will move on though. and talk about another disappointing loss for one of our teams, and that would be UT Martin getting the victory over Jacksonville State. So you were at the game. I will let you talk about it, and hopefully we could keep it somewhat civil.
I was about to say, hopefully I don't go off like somebody else we know.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the FCS Fans Nation,
He was ruthless. Matthew Frazee, you were ruthless, but exactly what you said needed to be said.
So yeah, I will shut up and let you give your thoughts about the game, and we will keep going.
All right. So, first off, I just want to say to the students at JSU, that was a pathetic excuse of a student section this past weekend. It was god awful. No interaction from the first kick, unlike the previous week. But people have said it wasn't a night game, so some people weren't able to come, and I'm like, I understand that, but it's on a Saturday. So, but I understand completely. JSU looked really good right out the gate. We got up 14-0 in the first quarter, and I want to say UT Martin scored 3 in the first quarter. Yeah, so by the end of the first quarter, it was 14-3. And then going into halftime, it was 17-10. Going into halftime, I was kind of like, okay, this is a good spot. UT Martin is a good team, so it's supposed to look this way, and JSU is going to pull away in the second half. That was not the case. My dad even said, I don't like that score. I was like, if you jinx us, I'm going to hurt you. But anyways, like JSU played really well in the third quarter. As far as like defense goes, they just stopped what needed to be stopped, even though UT Martin, I think towards the end of the third quarter, scored like 10 points back to back. So at the end of the third quarter, it ended up being 24-20. So JSU was still in the lead. And then in the fourth quarter, like, I don't know what it was, but our boys looked like they weren't conditioned properly. They looked tired on defense. Offense was on fire the entire game. That's the best our offense has looked since 2015. It was amazing to see that. It was clicking all game long. But our defense, we've had one of the best defenses in the FCS, and this year they look like they are a D2 defense. I don't know what the deal is. Like, they need to figure it out. And JSU is so inconsistent.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed is that which Jacksonville State team is going to show up each week. It's hard. It makes it hard on me to pick games like that when, is the team that got blown out 31-0 by UAB gonna show up, or is it gonna be the team that beat Florida State? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Neal said it great. UT Martin is not a bad team. They're a really good team. No. But when you're ranked in the top 10, you're supposed to beat UT Martin. Like, that's just facts. So I'm blaming this on Gross. I mean, we were outcoached. Just plain and simple, we were outcoached. Gross did no adjustments. Like, even at the end of the game when we could have stopped UT Martin on third downs to force them to punt to get the ball back, no changes were made whatsoever. You knew they were running to the outside, and you still gave them the first down. Like, at this point, I'm done with JSU. I'm done. I know I'm smiling, and it seems like I'm laughing when I say that, but I am officially done. I'm so tired of this, and I'm not the only one. I am so done of this inconsistency.
you were talking
That's all
about
I got to say. I'm done.
you talk about adjustments. That's I like to think that adjustments are the sign of a good football team and especially a good coaching staff. And we in the second half against Sam Houston, we won the second half. We adjustments were made, shut them out in the third quarter. I mean, it was like two totally different teams were on the field, and so I was super impressed with that with Coach Brown and Coach Kitchens, Coach Collins. The adjustments that were made were awesome, and so super proud of that. But yeah, I would agree that the adjustments were not made on Jacksonville State's end, and so that makes it kind of difficult to win close games. But might as well pull the banner down behind you. Sounds like you're needing a new team.
No, I'm a JSU guy, but like with this whole Gross situation, I'm done. I've said all I need to say, and this game just further proved why he needs to get fired. I'm just done repeating myself.
If you're not a FCS football regular, it's not the same landscape in FCS football that it is in FBS, and I don't know that um, firings happen near as often as maybe resignations or mutual agreements to part ways. It's not like uh, you see coaches get fired all the time in FBS because they don't win. Like at Texas teams. My roommate's getting excited about a game. I don't know if you can hear him in the background. He's a big Packers fan. They're playing right now. Anyway, you take Texas for example. I feel like Texas has been right there on the verge of being good for several years, kind of like Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's had a little more success, but they've rolled through coaches and just left and right. It's like, hey, we'll bring them in for 2 years. If they don't do what we want them to do, fire them. And it just doesn't happen that way in FCS, or at least not at the maybe in the top couple tiers or one tier of FCS football, but not necessarily as you go down in the rankings. So
Yeah, and so I got into a conversation, I think on Twitter, with somebody, or it might have been somewhere else. I don't know. But they said, who are we going to replace him with? Like, I mean, that's a good question. And in that respect, keep Gross. By all means, keep Gross. If it's going to be that difficult to find another coach, then keep him. But just know you're going to get the same result every freaking year. If you're JSU fans want to see this team competing for national championships every single year. And we're not going to get that with Gross. We're just not going to get it with him.
I think that every coach has a job to do, and sometimes it's not necessarily to be the last coach that football program ever has. And maybe that's the case for John Gross. Maybe he is meant to have Jacksonville State in position to do well, which I think he does. I think they're in the position. They've got the resources and everything to do well, but he's not the guy to do it. So maybe that's his role. Maybe he's achieved it. Who knows? It sucks sometimes. I hate to go call for a guy's job like that because, he's a human. That's his job. But yeah, he should. Jacksonville State's like Matt said, Jacksonville State's got way too many resources. The facilities are too good, and the recruiting base and fan base are too large to not be competing at a national stage every year.
Yeah, and Matt said something about recruiting, that he does a bad job of recruiting. Yes, while he scouts out prospects, he's not the one that's making the pitches. We actually have somebody on our coaching staff that is in charge of recruiting. And so it's that guy that does it. So Gross isn't like in charge of like looking at the film. Like he looks at the film, but there's another guy that kind of like does that for him and gives him the results that this guy finds.
Yeah, and I mean, the recruiting, especially at an FCS school, it's a coaching staff wide affair. I mean, it's Each coach has a territory. They recruit it. They break down, and even sometimes the student assistants are the ones like, "Hey, I found a guy in your territory that looks pretty good. Looked at his film," and so it's not even always a coach that finds somebody. So you can't put recruiting on one person, but that's his coaching staff, and ultimately, you blame it on the leader of the group, and so it is what it is.
But which,
People don't complain about the president's cabinet; they complain about the president, and so
yeah, which I mean, it's not. I mean, as far as recruiting goes for JSU, it's not bad. Like we do a really good job of recruiting.
yeah, the talent level is great, but
It's the coaching, the actual coaching, that's the issue.
right, and I think that's what Matt was getting at is that the recruiting is successful enough that you should not be, um, that you should be competing on a national stage every year for a national title, and if you're not, then that falls on coaching of the players that you're recruiting because it's like, look at the other JSU, look at Jackson State. Like I don't want to knock Dion, but I know that this class that he pulled in was like number 40 in the entire country, FCS or FBS. I know they're freshmen, but still, um, dude's pulling 4-star recruits to an FCS school, and they don't look invincible. And Dion's great player. I don't know that he's necessarily a great coach, but that's just
Well, they've started the season 3-1, so
yeah. But you look at their games. I've watched their games. They don't look good, but maybe he'll be great. I don't know. Those dudes are freshmen right now, but yeah. If you've got all the talent in the world, you don't do anything with it, then that falls on you. So
yeah. And Dustin Helton, I think it was Dustin, he said that maybe what it might take to get Gross even considered for being fired is the media getting involved in like asking the hard questions, even posting articles about is Gross the right fit for JSU, even though he's been there for almost 10 years. Like, is he the right fit? JSU isn't going anywhere. As far as like they're just staying stagnant, if not getting worse.
well, and here's my thing. People love to say he's on the hot seat, but it really is hard to be on the hot seat in the FCS unless you are losing. And I don't know that he'll get fired unless he. The problem is Jacksonville State has been good. They haven't been great, but they've been good. Last year making it to deep in the playoffs in the spring. I'm trying to pull up season by season records.
Well, while you do that, the same thing happened with Jack Crow, the guy before Bill Clark. He had really good success early on. I believe he was brought on when we first made the move to the OVC, and we had pretty good success. And then it just got to where we are right now with Coach Gross, just staying stagnant, super inconsistent, undisciplined play. And it took, from what I've heard, it took 5 years of the fan base and alumni and students complaining for Crow to get fired.
So when John Gross got to Jacksonville I'm gonna pull this up so if you see me reading it, in 2014, is that correct?
He was the offensive coordinator in 13. That was his first year at JSU. But his first year as head coach is 14.
Okay. Just looking at conference title years, he's won 4 conference titles, and I guess last year would be his 5th. 10-2, 13-2, 10-2, 10-2. Undefeated, and which I know you're playing in the OVC, but undefeated in the OVC 4 years in a row. He's been to a national championship. Until he doesn't bring some level of success to Jacksonville, I know you want to win a national title, but it's the same thing with like Auburn. I like to think of it that way too. Gus Malzahn did not do bad at Auburn. He had a few bad years, but he did not do bad. And he was on the hot seat because he didn't bring him a national title. But I go back to the FBS versus FCS coaching landscape. It's a lot easier to get fired in the FBS. I firmly believe that because schools have the resources to fire you, buy you out of your contract, and then go get somebody and pay them a little more and buy success. So I don't know. I just don't know how bad it has to get for them to fire John Gross, but I don't know that winning, double-digit games pretty much every year is going to do it. Which, I mean, obviously now you could go 9-2 if you want out, but 8-3, 9-2, that's not a bad year at all. I know it's not what Jacksonville State fans want to see because they want to be in the national championship game like they were a few years back. But the fact of the matter is that's not always possible.
Right. And I think the biggest issue, if Sites really wants Gross gone, or anybody in the athletic department, if they want Gross gone, I think the biggest reason why he hasn't been fired yet is who are we going to replace him with? I think that's the biggest reason why he hasn't been fired yet.
Well, and that goes back to my point of he's been successful. If you then replace him with somebody who you think, if you have this grass is greener on the other side mindset, and it ends up being nowhere near as green, then that sucks. Then you look back and you've got bad blood with somebody who was pretty successful at your school, and then you're in a worse place. So who knows? But I would definitely say he's in the hot seat. Whether or not that seat gets very hot, who knows? I don't necessarily think he's going to get fired, but I do agree that Jacksonville State has more potential than what they have lived up to. Especially seeing what they've done. I mean, did y'all go to the quarterfinals last year? Yes, it was the quarterfinals. Yes. Okay, sorry, I have to think back. So he's been to the quarterfinals. He's been to a national championship game. He's won several conference titles, 5. I mean, the dude's level of success is pretty good. And so,
yeah, he's been to 2. If you include 13, when he was on coaching staff, he's been to 3.
Okay, fair. Well, as a head coach, as the big, the big cheese, but because that's when, yeah. So it is what it is. I know Jacksonville State fans want to be in the national championship game every year, but I mean, it's college football. There's parity. You're going to lose every now and then, but I also understand the frustration. So we will go ahead and move on and get out of the past and start talking about this week 5 of the FCS football season, and preview what we've got coming this week. So you've got it in front of you as well as I do. So I'll let you go ahead and give us a rundown of what games we've got, and then we'll jump into it.
Oh, we're skipping over one important thing?
Oh, yeah. Let's throw the sorry, my bad. It's late. I should be in bed. Yeah, sorry. We've got the AQ7 power poll just like we do every week. We do not have a tie this week, and so I will throw that up here now, and we will run through the results. For the first time, SFA jumps up into the top 3 after a pretty convincing win over a lower division opponent. Sam Houston stays at 1. UCA takes over sole possession of 2nd. SFA there at 3. Jacksonville State drops to 4. EKU stays at 5. And then I think we kind of shook the bottom out and figured out that Abilene is most definitely better than Lamar. And Lamar is actually pretty bad. So, yeah, we can talk about these results. This was actually... there's only one thing different about my poll, and I teetered with putting SFA at 3. I probably should have. They look good. They look athletic, but I don't know that they look necessarily. They haven't played too tough of a schedule. I know they played Texas Tech pretty close, but I still left JSU at 3. I left UCA at 2. I thought Sam Houston and UCA, other than the first, second quarter for the most part, is what where the separation was. But other than that, we played them pretty good. Big comeback. So I don't know that there's just a whole lot of separation there. But overall, I'm pleased with those results. But I know that yours was quite a bit different, and so we will talk about that because we had a discussion about it before the show. So I'll let you get into what you had.
Yeah. So I had Sam Houston at 1. They're not going to move until they lose. Just simple as that. I've liked how Stephen F. Austin has looked so far, even though their schedule doesn't prove it. But with UCA and JSU losing this week, I put them at 2. I moved EKU up to 3. Again, because UCA and JSU lost. And then I had UCA at 4. And then I had JSU at 5. JSU fans, before you come for my neck, ask yourself one question. After the way we played this weekend, do you seriously think we can beat Sam Houston, SFA, EKU, and UCA? Ask yourself that question first. And to finish out my poll, I had Abilene Christian, then Lamar.
So I think the difference in how we voted is I matched up every team, and I said, okay, who's better out of these two? I think that you play the games for a reason. Sam Houston, UCA played. Sam Houston won. They're the definitive number 1. But then just watching highlights and watching bits and pieces of games that I've been able to catch while we were tailgating, I like UCA's chances against everybody else in the conference. I know SFA's 3-1. I love the fact that they've, won 3 games. And I know Rev will swear by the fact that they just look different. And they look good. They look athletic. They look big, strong, fast. But yes, they played Texas Tech, played them close. But then the only other game against a respectable opponent, Mississippi Valley State's a bad football program. I think beating Tarleton by 10 was the next best result that they had, other than the close loss to Texas Tech. I think that's honestly their best result. So I left them at 3, I left them at 4 because I do think Jacksonville State, if they played them head to head, would win more. If they played 10 times, I think Jacksonville State wins 6 or 7 of them. I think they're just the more talented team. And this is kind of an oxymoron, but the better coach team. Maybe not the most disciplined team, but the better coach team, and probably get out schemed.
We'll find out in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of this, is that we get to see these teams play. And in my opinion, a power poll should be who do you think would win the games? Not necessarily. That's why I think it's okay to have a 1-3 team ahead of a 3-1 in a power poll. Now, I understand media polls and coaches polls. They vote on results or record, and that's sometimes how it goes. But I do believe in the beauty of eye test, and so I think UCA with the eye test is the second best team, and I like our chances against everybody that we have left on the schedule. And I would say I like our chances against Sam Houston, but we've already played them, so it is what it is.
Yeah, sadly, I think my prediction for our game in a month is probably going to change.
With us? Oh yeah, you predicted a Jacksonville State win, so maybe we'll get a agreement there. But I guess we'll get to that in a couple weeks. But just to flash up there again, run the poll down one more time. It went Sam Houston, UCA, SFA, Jacksonville State, Eastern Kentucky, Abilene, and Lamar. I did leave Eastern down at 5. When I put them against SFA, I think that SFA, as far as well-rounded teams, I think SFA looks a little bit better. And I think that Eastern Kentucky very easily could have lost that game to Austin P. Pick sixes, like I said earlier, are big-time game changers. And if you don't have them, they momentum maybe swings Austin P's way and they get a dub. So, but we'll see. They'll get to play each other. So now we will move on to previewing week 5. And if you're good with it, I will let you talk through the games and then we'll dive into them.
Yeah. So first up, we have EKU versus Tarleton State on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time on ESPN2. Then we have UCA at Abilene Christian at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Then we also have UNA versus Campbell at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Just to mention them, Austin P plays Tennessee State at 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And I would assume you would think of this as the game of the week, but we have JSU at Kennesaw State, the third ASUN game of the year, at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, that I would agree that is the game of the week. 2 teams that I don't know what to make of them yet because
they're both so inconsistent.
Well, or maybe they are. Maybe the teams they're playing are we just don't know how good the teams they're playing are. Who knows? But I would have expected Kennesaw to win by more than 10 against Reinhardt. I would have expected them to not win as big as they did against Wofford. I know Wofford's not great, but whatever. So yeah, we'll dive into Eastern Kentucky, Tarleton State. Not a whole lot to be said about this one. I think Eastern Kentucky, like I said earlier, has got something brewing in Richmond. They got a good program, got a heck of a quarterback. Parker McKinney looked good against Austin P. Ran the ball well, had a rushing touchdown. I'm going to go with Eastern Kentucky to get it done. And against a Tarleton team that haven't seen a lot of, but does look like they're having some growing pain. And so I think Eastern Kentucky could win that one pretty handily.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Tarleton's schedule real quick. All of their losses, I mean, both of their wins are to D2 teams, but all of their losses are close losses to FCS teams. Yeah. So I think EKU is going to win, but do not be surprised if Tarleton makes it a close game.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. They've been impressive in some games, and they've been unimpressive in others, a little underwhelming. But I do think Eastern Kentucky has all the weapons in place to handle the Texans and get 2 in a row. So going on to UCA and Abilene Christian. This is a game that was a conference game a year ago or for the last few years. Always a tough one. Abilene always plays us tough. It's been, I guess we won on a missed last second field goal on their part that gave us the game in 2019. Won a close one in 2018 there in Abilene, and seems like they're always good games. And so I wouldn't expect anything different. I think it'll be a good game, but I do think after what is I get the feeling is a disappointing loss for most of the people involved in the UCA program. I think UCA gets back on track. It is a long trip over to West Texas or Central Texas for the most part to Abilene. So as long as we don't let that get in the way, I think we'll be okay. But I don't see it being a huge blowout win or anything. But I do think we could win by 14 points. So I think we could blow them out, but I'm going to say, just with the history of the game, that it's more like a little bit closer game, but I do think we get the win there in Abilene.
So Abilene is y'all's Tennessee Martin.
I wouldn't say they're our Tennessee Martin because we've tended to win the games. And we've blown them out a few times, but just here lately, they've been, seems like they, kind of got to where it looked like they were going to, finally get over the hump after transitioning to D1. And it was like, hey, they're going to be a factor in the Southland. And then they just kind of never did. Like they would lose close games to everybody. It was like they'd play everybody close, but they would lose to everybody. And so I wouldn't necessarily say they're a UT Martin. I would say more like Southeastern Louisiana is our UT Martin.
Okay.
But because I think they've had a little bit more success than Abilene. But still a team that here lately has tended to play us pretty close.
With just the way Abilene played against Lamar, I know it's Lamar. We all know it's Lamar. But with the way they destroyed Lamar, I think this is going to be a lot like the EKU Tarleton game. UCA could blow them out, but do not be surprised if Abilene keeps it close. But I got the Bears winning.
Yeah, I don't think UCA starts out the year 1-4. I know that the coaching staff will get them right this week, and I've got high expectations for how that game turns out. I would love to see a big win, and I think we could. So moving on, we've got North Alabama against Campbell. They're at home against Campbell, against the Camels. Everybody in the FCS Fans Nation's favorite team, even though we haven't had like a hump day graphic since, I guess, Kelsey stepped down as an admin, became admin emeritus. But so somebody will have to take that over. But no, the Lions and the Camels play at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus, and Campbell coming off a bye week. North Alabama coming off a loss to Nichols. Campbell's last result was like a 72-0 win over Presbyterian, which I don't know what to think about that. Presbyterian looked good in their first two games against lower division opponents. Presbyterian's new head coach came from a high school that I actually played against here in Arkansas, and he doesn't ever punt, and he only onside kicks. And it's a super weird philosophy, but that's what he does. And he won a lot of games doing it, scored a lot of points, got a really good offense, but I don't know how that's going to work on the college level. And Campbell just took it to him. They didn't even score against Campbell, and Campbell scored a whole lot of points. But UNA, I just can't see them starting 0-5, especially at home there in Florence. I think they're hungry for a win. And, North Alabama football is not used to losing. That is not normal for them. So I'm going to go with the Lions, and I'm going to pick them until they win. I don't care who the heck they're playing. I'm picking them until they win, unless it's us. But they will get their first win this week, as I have said for like the last 3 weeks. No, really just 2. But they will win this week against the Camels of Campbell.
Yeah, I picked UNA in the first 3 games in 3 of their 4 games, and it was against teams I thought UNA was going to be able to compete against, and they did, but they didn't win. So I think for the first time ever, I am going with the Camels. I am picking Campbell to go into Florence and beat UNA and have them start 0-5.
Well, we'll see. I am one of those guys that I'm going to pick like I said, I'm going to pick them until they win, because they're not going to go 0-11, and eventually I will get one right and look halfway smart. So
we will have receipts if you're wrong.
We will. My luck, they'll go 0-11 now, but We will see. I think they get the first win, especially playing in Florence. It's a tougher place to play than most transition schools into D1. It's a pretty tough place to play there at Braley Stadium. Moving on down, we got Austin Peay at Tennessee State. And, a week ago, I would have said this game doesn't look like it should be close. I still don't think it will. I was very unimpressed with Tennessee State. I watched them all spring with the OVC playing on Sundays. I got to watch a lot of OVC games. And, man, just didn't look in sync, didn't look very good. I think Austin Peay gets another win this week, even after dropping a close one to Eastern Kentucky. I think they get back on track with a team that they should beat, and I think they will beat.
Yeah, the Govs even though they lost last week, they have looked phenomenal all season. They look like a playoff caliber team. They look like they are going to be poised to win the OVC. And the OVC is actually kind of shaken up this year. The order will be a lot different this year. Now, question is, who's going to be the bottom feeder, Tennessee State or Tennessee Tech? But like that, with that being said, I don't think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a blowout win for the Govs.
Yeah, I expect Austin Peay to get back on track, and I hope they do. Yeah, the OVC is something different this year. I expected SEMO to be a little bit better than maybe they are. They haven't impressed me a whole lot. I thought they would.
EIU hasn't won an OVC game in the past like 2 seasons, and they just beat Tennessee Tech.
Things are shaking up there in the Ohio Valley, but so we both agree that Austin Peay gets a win this week. Moving on down, game of the week: Jacksonville State at Kennesaw State. To round out the weekend of ASUN football, like you said, the third ASUN game of the year, after Austin Peay, EKU, and Jacksonville State, North Alabama. So this is a weird game. I still feel confident that Jacksonville State is the better team because I think just talent-wise and the offenses they run, I still see Kennesaw as one of those teams that, like, when they run into a good team, they're going to get beat just because I don't think they give themselves a chance to win very well. Jacksonville State has a good rush defense, and Kennesaw is going to try and, run that little triple option. Like, we're sitting back in the
we thought we had a good rushing defense.
Okay, but you still do. Sample size is small. When you know that they're going to run the ball, I think you can load the box and stop it, and I think you've still got the defensive backs to shut down whatever Kennesaw State tries to throw at you, literally and figuratively. So yeah, I'm confident with this one that the Gamecocks will get a win. I think, it's a little bit of a wake-up call to, win a close one to a rival, but then it's really a wake-up call when you lose to UT Martin. So I think that they get back on track. I think Gross gets the guys in check, and they go to Kennesaw and get a road win. So that's just how I feel about it. I'm going to trust Jamie that Wofford stinks. That's what he told me. So I'm going to say that Kennesaw's win against Wofford was not that impressive, according to what Jamie said. He knows Southern Conference football, or at least he sounds like he does on the podcast. So if he doesn't, then he does a good job of sounding like he does. So I'm going to go with Jacksonville State.
So I made a post that I am picking against JSU for all the games minus Abilene Christian and Lamar for the rest of the season.
Oh God, what a fair weather fan.
But I will say this. I'm going to comment on the game first before I give my prediction. I think that we can stop the triple option. But given the history, we are 0-2 against Kennesaw. the first one was a 10-point loss. The other one was a 8-point loss. It was a 60-52 loss in 5 overtimes at SunTrust Park. Yeah, just think of it this way: the game went into overtime tied at 24, and the score ended up being 60-52.
Sounds like LSU and Texas A&M.
Oh God, that game was brutal to watch. But anyways, I think we can beat Kennesaw. But for the rest of the season, even if I am wrong, I am a firm believer that if I pick against my Gamecocks, they're going to win. But if they lose, I was correct. So for the rest of the season, I am picking against the Gamecocks, except in Abilene Christian and Lamar. So I got the Owls beating JSU.
All right. It's an interesting tactic to just pick against who you want to win. That's, if it works, it works. But no, that should be a good one. That's another budding rivalry, I think, in the new ASUN football conference. Mm-hmm. So that'll be fun to watch that grow as the conference ages and becomes a little more firmly rooted in FCS football. So, we got a good week 5 coming up. We appreciate you listening to Around the ASUN. We are a part of the FCS Fans Nation network of shows on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are found. So we appreciate you listening. Make sure you're joining the FCS Fans Nation Facebook page on Facebook. That's where Facebook pages are. And following them on Twitter and Instagram at FCS_fans_nation. Make sure you're following us on Twitter as well. That's where we are most active as far as social media goes. We are at Around the ASUN, just like the name of the podcast. So, like I said, we appreciate you listening. Week 4 was disappointing for me and Brandon, but big wins for some other teams. And we are looking forward to week 5, watching a good weekend of football and seeing how we start to shake the AQ7 standings out. So this is it's really going to get going this weekend. It did last weekend, and it's going to continue as we move forward. So we appreciate you listening. Enjoy week 5, everybody.